So bringing on Fadi and Alex to talk about revolution and entrepreneurship.
Good morning. Thank you. Morning.
Great pronunciation. Good morning, Fadi.
It's Alex Asseily, in case you didn't know. There's an in Arabic that you can't speak in Latin languages. So, even though he's blonde.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
So, Fadi,
Your
you
turn.
started Aramex in 1982, and if I recall, in 1982, I was 7 years old.
That's terrible.
I was being smuggled in the back of a car between East Beirut, Ashrafiyya, and West Beirut to get to the airport in order to leave Beirut because the Israelis were invading and the Palestinians were everywhere and all the rest of it. What baffles me, but I think is worth everyone hearing, is how someone can come up with the idea of starting a logistics company in the Middle East in a period of time when there was a lot of turmoil, where a lot of these countries were not speaking to each other, and all the other history that people might be aware of.
Yeah, I think the competitive advantage for Aramex in the early days was that there were revolutions and civil wars and disruptions and all sorts of things happening in the region because everyone else was scared to start up a business over there or to come. The big companies, the FedExes of this world or the UPSs of the world said, this is a crazy place. Who is going to do business in the Arab world? Perfect. I keep saying to people, if you are afraid of a region, excellent, because the people that live in that region are the people that are going to build their businesses and thrive without having to face this massive competition that's going to come from these multinational, multi-billion-dollar companies. So the reality of the matter is, having graduated out of college here in the US, I went back home. I never thought that I was going to stay here. I went back home, and home was home. And whether there were wars, civil wars, or whatever, you're there. So we thought that post offices did not work well. They still don't work well. And there needs to be someone to respond to that terrible situation of getting packages on time. And so we started Aramex. And we didn't think the question of risk was different for us. We didn't think that there was a civil war in Beirut or Saddam Hussein had invaded Iran at that time. There was the Iran-Iraq civil war. It just didn't occur to us. We said, OK, we're going to start a business. It's very simple. And then when you were in the back of the car, we were in the business of stopping people sniping at each other from East and West Beirut so that the Aramex packages can pass.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
So we saved your life.
I think I was in the van, actually. I was one of the packages.
Yes, indeed.
I think, you may not see it as being a consciously revolutionary act, but in a region where there is a sense that people put up with the same thing again and again, year after year, to have started a company whose job it is, irrespective of the fact that it's a big business, irrespective of the fact that you're delivering packages, your job ultimately was to connect people who are disconnected from each other as well as from the rest of the world.
Sure. In the early days, I didn't even know what the concept of entrepreneurship was. I was just starting a business. It took me a while because people started identifying me as an entrepreneur. I had no idea what that was. I didn't study. I didn't go to business school. So, I mean, I'm not a believer in business schools. Sorry, guys. But so I was just starting a business, and the question of being revolutionary about it just occurred to me later in my life, thinking, man, I mean, nobody does what I mean, how do you set up a business that wants to compete with DHL? That's like crazy.
It was perhaps the fact that you were not aware of how crazy you were.
Exactly, and it's that sense of innocence, that we talked about earlier in the entrepreneurs that gets you to feel that yes, it can be done, and it is a sense of innocence. It's not stupidity, it's innocence. It's like this little kid that looks at the stove, looks at the stove and touches it anyway. He knows there's heat. I mean, he won't touch it again. But he touches it because there is innocence. And in entrepreneurship, there is that sense of invincibility. And that comes from innocence, because when you're young, I was 22 years old when I started the business. I mean, I had nothing to worry about really at the end of the day. And so looking back at it, yes, we eventually conquered the Arab world, which was unconquerable. Because the Arab world is 22 countries. Each country has a different way of doing business. It was impossible to clear customs, wars all over the place. But we set out to say that we can actually connect the Arab world on time, and let alone an Arab. You know, there is a concept that Arabs are always late. And so for somebody like me to say,
it's a reality.
yes, but not in Aramex. So we have revolutionized the concept of Arabs being late because we deliver on time.
I like that. I like that. Well, I have to say, it's having started a company in the Valley and struggled doing it. I take my hat off to someone who started it in an environment that is antithetical to the type of startup culture you have here, and succeeded doing it.
You know, what's critical is, and I talk to many entrepreneurs from my region, but I've been talking to a lot of the guys in Turkey and from Latin America, and I see them having exactly the same challenges that we have. So it's amazing that there is that commonality of a sense of purpose and a sense of can-do among everyone that comes from markets that require revolutionary solutions that people would think it's not doable.